MorningLine, talking politics, election day next Tuesday. Early voting ends today. News Channel 5 political analyst Pat Nolan is gracing me with his presence this morning. Do they have to twist your arm? I hope not.
No.
It's always good to see you.
I'm usually up this hour in the morning anyway.
Yeah, okay. I know you are. All right. Let's take a couple more phone calls here. It's our last segment with Pat before we have some other guests coming on, but we want to cover as much ground as we can, and we'll go to next up is Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Good morning, people. Number one, I would like to give a grateful thank you to Phil Williams, Jennifer Krause, and rest of the investigative journalists for telling the truth about this governor we have right now. I didn't early vote, but the main reason I went over is that Dr. Jason Martin was there, and I talked to him for a long time. The last question I sent to our governor, I leave my phone number, he never gets back to me. The last one that I sent him is, why won't you debate Dr. Jason Martin?
Yeah, okay. I think we know who he's supporting on this. Talk a bit about the governor race.
Well, I mean, ever since Tennessee has allowed the opportunity for governors to seek a second four-year term, remember, until about the mid-'70s, Tennessee governors were elected for a single term. So the day they were elected, they became a lame duck. They could not seek re-election. There was an opportunity for Ray Blanton to do that. The change in the Constitution had been adopted before that, but he perhaps wisely decided not to seek a second term. But ever since that time, Governor Alexander and all the governors since then have all sought a second term and been re-elected pretty handily.
Yeah,
so there's a tradition for part of that. And you know, quite frankly, I think Dr. Martin has tried very valiantly, but he's very, very unknown. He was not very well known within Davidson County and in Middle Tennessee. That may have improved a little bit, but I don't know that that's improved much at all across the state. So I suspect I'll be watching to see what those numbers look like and whether he can get above the 30% margin where most Democratic gubernatorial candidates have been in recent years, with the exception of Phil Bresson, the two times that he's been able to get elected to office. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of drama about that. I suspect that that race will be called by Associated Press and the others fairly quickly as soon as they get maybe a few votes in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I agree. Let's go next to Carl. Carl, good morning. Hi, Carl.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Corruption in Tennessee state government. Lord Acton, who's the French Catholic historian of the French Revolution, said power corrupts absolutely. So in my opinion, probably just like you have a law of gravity, just like the law of science, political science, that Tennessee government, probably the Republicans have absolute power in state legislature. So it's probably the most corrupt government ever. Do you agree with that?
You're talking about corruption. He just thinks it's corrupt. Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Nashville has stayed fairly busy over the years from time to time of having lawmakers run afoul and either resign or be indicted in some cases over the years, not necessarily recently, although we've had some in the last year or two with the former speaker and people like that. Going to prison. Unfortunately, it's a recurring issue. I wouldn't say it's overly pervasive, but it happens.
Yep. Let's go to Wilma. Wilma, good morning. Hi, Wilma.
Yeah, I just want to say about something about David Martin. Today at noon on public radio, 90.3, he will be on, and they've got a lot of questions for him to answer, and it's a shame that the governor of Tennessee declined to come on to the show. I think it's a shame. So listen, it's radio. You can hear it all over the Mid-South. Goodbye.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard about that coming in. Typically do candidates then get into the fray? I think the governor's probably sitting here thinking there's no requirement that he has to debate or go on one of these shows, that he's sitting pretty, okay? If you think that you're far enough ahead, why would you do anything to potentially jeopardize that? Whereas certainly the other challenger who's behind would welcome any opportunity to go head-to-head because that's where they could pick up ground.
Well,
they kind of understand the strategy.
I'm sure the governor has advisors who are saying, Governor, if you do one or a series of debates, you're basically taking an unknown candidate who is underfunded and not known, you're elevating him by being on the same stage with him. Now, I mean, I understand. And I think if the voters continue to say that's important, then maybe that'll start changing that. Because if the candidate perceives that, hey, I need to do this, but otherwise it's going to hurt me, then maybe they'll start doing it. But in this case, I think the numbers are such that Bill Lee had this be the other way around, where the Democrat was the strong candidate and the Republican was not. I suspect the incumbent particularly would not debate somebody who's not very well known.
That's the strategy. All right, since we just have a little more time with you here, let's just talk about District 5, of whom the person who held that seat for years will be joining you Tuesday, Jim Cooper. But Andy Ogles, Heidi Campbell. This is District 5, I suppose, is going to be leaning toward going Republican with Ogles, who's, I think, probably leading in the polls right now.
Heidi Campbell is coming on Inside Politics with me. We'll do the interview tomorrow morning. She's obviously going through a very difficult situation. It's hard enough to run for election, but her husband she's announced she's got stage 4 cancer. That makes running,
stunning.
Puts life in perspective. And certainly she needs everyone's prayers and help to get through all this. We did ask Andy Ogles to come on. We were not able to work that out with any of his people to have him come on.
Would you imagine that's some of the same thinking that we were just talking about with regard to the governor's race, that Andy figures he's far enough ahead, why give Heidi any chance in the debate?
I suspect that's right. Ogles, and perhaps more than other candidates, seems to have gone on pretty much cruise control. I mean, he kind of, for a long time early in the general election, after the August primary, he just kind of disappeared off the campaign trail, wasn't doing much of anything. He did bring in Ted Cruz to do some things. I think he's got an event going on in Williamson County, in Rutherford, down in Murray County this week. He's got more and more people doing some things. He's put out some more online ads. He's taken all his television off the air. And Heidi Campbell has got enough money to put some. She's probably done a more higher profile campaign than I thought she'd be able to do. But she is basically working uphill. Remember, when they analyzed after this new district was created, had this been a district in 2020, it would have voted for Donald Trump by more than double digits. So she knew she was uphill to begin with. Now, I'm interested to see how she says she thinks the race is going to go, but I suspect I'll also find out she's perhaps a bit distracted right now because of the other things going on, but she's going to obviously keep going, and we'll see what happens, but she will be on the show this weekend.
Good. Worth tuning in for that. Any other thoughts about some of these races, or just as we go into this week, that you'd like to share before we wrap things up?
Well, I'm looking at the district out in 59 that was redrawn. You have
which district? I'm sorry.
It's District 59. Cable Hemmer against Michelle Foreman. Republicans think that may be the way they've drawn that district, that may give them one opportunity to get out there. The Republican has actually been attacked by Hemmer because she has some rather MAGA tendencies in her, and I think they're trying to remind voters that, at least according to the ad, she's supportive of the insurrectionists that were up on the Capitol on January 6th. That she's also been involved in the group that was trying to put those Metro Charter amendments on and wound up being in violation of the federal law about robocalls, and that get an adverse court and a fine from a federal court about that. So watch that race to see. It's unusual. There's no incumbent in this race, but this is. Hemmer's been running. He's also relatively unknown. He's been involved in politics, been an aide to a number of top elected officials. But I think it'll be interesting to see what he winds up doing, because he's not only running positive ads about who he is and why he's qualified to run. He's been running some pretty sharp attack ads against her, and it's unusual for state representatives to run ads on television, because if you're on the television here at Channel 5, you're talking to people not just within that district, you're talking to people all over Davidson County who can't vote for you, and people across Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama who can't vote for you either. So you're reaching a lot of people that can't help you, but obviously you think it's important enough to put that ad on to go after her. And you only usually attack people if you think they're a threat to you or they're moving, and you want to make them quit moving.
What is your take, just moving forward on this? You see other races, maybe in open governorship races, say in Arizona. How big a sway do you think former President Trump still holds here in the state of Tennessee?
I suspect,
moving forward,
I suspect it's pretty strong. Maybe not quite as strong as it was back when he was president, but he did, by the way, endorse Ogles in the general election. He did not early. He had a different candidate that he endorsed in the primary, but his candidate was one of those that got kicked off the ballot by the state Republican Party because they didn't think they were quite bona fide enough Tennessee Republicans to be on the ballot. I think he's pretty strong. He may still poll about as well as anybody, but you're always as good as what your last election is, and we'll see, because I think as much as this is a referendum nationwide on the president and Democrats because they're the party in power in Washington, Number two to that would be what people think about Donald Trump. And trust me, if some of his candidates win, especially in these Senate races, he's going to tell you that he delivered all this for the Republicans, and he may use that as a way to, right after the election, to say announce he's running for 2024.
Meanwhile, if he doesn't, there's plenty of people lining up to run if he does not.
Oh, yes, and there's a lot of people who hope that he doesn't do that, and maybe they hope that legal issues and other things may keep him from being effective for being able to do that. But every indication still continues to be he's looking towards running in president again in 2024.
And the strategy was, I mean, why has he not announced yet? Why not? I mean, clearly he's going to wait and see how things go.
It's highly unusual in American politics. I can't ever remember a former president, particularly one just out of office, who is trying to influence the election after they leave. Not in this fashion, not endorsing people and things like that. Now, maybe if you go way back to Grover Cleveland, you find somebody do that, because Grover Cleveland's the only American president who served 2 terms but did not serve them consecutively. He served his first term, got beat, came back 4 years later and won again. Well,
and the reason that former President Trump is doing this now is because he's probably thinking of running. If he wasn't, then that's the whole point of it. He'll be watching that moving forward.
And so we'll see. In some states, there are some states he would be the kiss of death, but in some states, and you see it in Pennsylvania, he's got candidates that people thought maybe that would hurt them, but they're late in the game. They seem to be rallying to come back. Now that may be because people are unhappy about the economy and interest rates and inflation and things like that. But they've been marked as Trump. People that Trump's supporting, so I think that'll be important, and he'll let it give everybody an opportunity to know that he was involved in that.
Sure. All right, listen, as we do wrap things up, again, early voting ends today. I want to make it clear, as you said, there's going to be a meeting with the Election Commission and folks involved with this question about the wrong ballots going out on Friday, but the problem, what was in place, has been corrected. So if you haven't voted yet, you should say go with confidence.
Don't use this as a reason not to go vote.
Right, I wanted to say that.
In fact, it ought to be a reason for you to vote, particularly if you're unhappy. I suspect the Election Commission will put together some kind of intense, comprehensive investigation for what actually happened and what it means, and to make sure that not only is the barn door shut, but it's locked and it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, that's something like this. But, I mean, not to make any excuses. It was a significant change. For whatever reason, it wasn't checked. Maybe there was a difference between what they had and what the Secretary of State had. They'll work that out. But just make sure you have confidence moving forward now. Whatever that problem was, it's been corrected. You can vote today, all right? Last day for early voting. The polls open Tuesday.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? And they go until 7.
Well, they go to 7 o'clock unless you're in line late. And you can
right, I was about to say that. Yeah.
That may or may not be a big problem this time. It's going to be dark. In fact, it'll be dark at 4:30 next week at that time. But
right, because the daylight saving.
People don't necessarily like to vote late in November night. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but because you don't want to stand outside. If you're going to be in line, you don't have to stand. Well, the way the weather's been here lately has been in the 70s. So I don't think. At this point, from what I've seen in the weather forecast, and it can change, it's not going to be rainy. It's not going to be cold. So
hopefully that's
the weather
good
will give
turnout.
you no excuses not to vote.
Yeah, bring your ID.
Absolutely.
Always remember to just bring your ID. And every time I go there, they always ask me if I need help, when I'm going through. And I've voted on so many different machines over my life and stuff. I always ask for the refresher. And the volunteers, they're doing a nice job saying you push this, and all that. Walk you through, and it is pretty much seamless. And then you get the sticker.
That's right. I usually wear it for a day or two after that.
All right, Pat, let's remind everyone again that you will be part of our, as always, coverage. First of all, tomorrow you will have Inside Politics. And then on Tuesday, 7 p.m., Pat will be on the Plus here along with Carrie Sharp. Rory Johnston will be hosting that with you. And then the guests, let's see, we've got to have a former Congressman, soon-to-be former Congressman, Jim Cooper, Lisa Quigley, Beth Harwell, a good team covering all the elections. Should be getting the results pretty early on, right?
I hope so. And we had a problem with that last time because some of the machines broke down in some places, and we didn't get the Election Commission refused to release any results until all the votes were. Yeah. Everybody had voted, and that there's nothing worse than doing an election show and you ain't got no numbers. I can tell you that. All dressed up and no place to go.
Hopefully it works out better this time around. Pat, thank you for coming on.
Sure.
Always a pleasure seeing you, my friend. All right, and we'll be watching again tomorrow and next Tuesday. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to shift gears. We have some other guests joining us here in just a moment. Stay with us.